now it's time to get to our featured review. And for this, we turn to Netflix. And this was a movie that it's got some cred behind it. But really, what happened is we were looking at what's coming out. We read the description of this movie and went, yeah, we need to see that. And so what we reviewed is the new Netflix release, directed by Pablo Larraín, El Conde. Zach, you're going to go first on this one. Tell us about El Conde and why it was so intriguing, and then what you thought.
Okay, El Conde is the newest film from Pablo Larraín. You know him from Jackie and Spencer. I believe Spencer made Terry's List back in 2021.
It was a tough.
And I think we're still all kind of shocked that Kristen Stewart didn't win Best Actress for it. I think we can all... Is it too early to agree that she was better than Jessica Chastain? I mean, I think that will be... History will remember that as a pretty flawed
got in the
category.
lineup, too. That was
that was ridiculous. Anyway, better days for Pablo Larraín, in my opinion. El Conde tells the story of General Augusto Pinochet, the disgraced former dictator of Chile, who died in the mid-2000s. But this movie speculates, I think it would be the most generous word to use, it speculates that he was actually an undead vampire. Not from Chile, but actually from France. During the French Revolution, once tasted Marie Antoinette's blood. And somehow, through some unexplained phenomenon that sounds a little bit like a Nicolas Cage movie, perhaps, he is able to transplant himself centuries forward, and in the midst of becoming a brutal dictator, also sucks on the blood of his victims before... And you're going to have to correct me. I couldn't quite understand the plot of this movie. So something happens where the family of him gets it, like he's dead or maybe not dead. I think he's still alive, but the family somehow greets him at this kind of remote like vacation home and is eager for his money. Now, this is where I have to pause the review for a second and say that I could not get through this movie without sleeping several times. So there were many different parts that didn't quite add up for me. But I also have to say that, did it hurt sleeping during those moments? I don't think so. There's another storyline in this movie that involves a young nun who is, I believe, sent to exorcise the demons from Dracula/Pinochet, but may also have an alternate agenda. All of this in the midst of monk-esque black and white cinematography and a voiceover narration that sounds a little bit like an episode of the Great British Baking Cook-Off. That's the only thing I thought of during it, and I just got hungry watching it. Pablo Larraín certainly has an interesting philosophy of movies. I'm not really sure what it is, but he was a talented filmmaker with Jackie and Spencer. And this movie, it sounded fun when we read the synopsis on IMDb, and it's really also a testament to the fact that nothing is coming out thanks to the writer's strike. So we're really, really desperate in trying to find new content. This movie, it was a total disaster for me from start to finish. I absolutely could not get into this movie at all. I wanted to. I'm always curious to see what people say about their former dictators in the countries that they're from. But this movie, right away, the real abrasive English-speaking narration with these grotesque, over-the-top vampire sequences, and then the audacity to bring in like a killer, a real-life killer like Pinochet, and turn it into some sort of bizarre mix of like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter and just missing or something like that. Like it has to do with the South American dictatorship. I don't know. It was awful. I couldn't get into it. It was a real struggle staying awake during this movie. The big reveal in the last 30-minute mark, I mean, it's not worth watching the whole movie. I guess it's entertaining. The movie feels like a 2-hour-long SNL sketch that never takes off. It's boring. And most of all, I think it disrespects the real victims of this horrible dictator. We're making him into some sort of vampire hero. Well, that's great. I mean, I think really diminishes the impact that this real life figure had, and then to kind of associate him with the identity of the person who ends up being the narrator is ridiculous. I was awake during those parts. I wish I'd been asleep. This movie is really, really bad. I really kind of hated it. I think it's better than 80 for Brady. I think the cinematography is better for 80 for Brady, so I can't quite go that low. I'm giving it 1 star. I would not want to ever watch this movie again.
All right. Todd, what's on the spacecraft that's good?
Well, I mean, I don't think it was nearly as bad as Zach's saying, but what I thought this movie was if you took like the sensibilities of like Yorgos Lanthimos and put it into a Jim Jarmusch movie, and that's kind of what you get here. It's really strange, but the black and white turns what I think would have been like a trashy comedy into something like oddly almost more serious and tragic. And the overwrought narration is weird because the whole time I was like, why is Helen Mirren like the narrator here? And apparently it wasn't her, which I was like shocked to find out.
Oh, it's Tilda Swinton.
It was definitely Helen Mirren, but this thing was all over the place. I love how cynical the main character was. Like he isn't just this like unlikable monster that would have been in almost any other movie. It reminded me again of this movie that I mentioned a bunch of times on this podcast over the years, which is Look Who's Back, which was this movie where Hitler wakes up in like modern day Berlin. And like it has like all these movies I feel like are trying to be something in that realm, and like none of them really work as well as that movie did. It's a weird, strange way to do comedy, but I mean people keep coming back to it. I'm not exactly sure what the movie accomplishes, but it's intriguing. I didn't necessarily like it. It did drag on a lot because it was just sort of like really cold and uninviting. But I mean, I'm at 2.5 stars. I didn't think it was a horrible movie like Zach did, but I mean, hey, it's still I don't know. I'm not really a Pablo Larraín fan. I've realized because I thought Jackie was pretty overrated. I like Spencer, but Neruda also really overrated, and I thought No was one of the worst foreign film nominees of this century. So I'm not really a fan of his movies. Apparently, I thought I kind of was, but I guess not.
I didn't realize No was directed by him. Okay, that makes a little more sense. Yeah, I'm kind of right with Todd in this. It is thrice declined. I'm giving it 2.5 stars as well. One thing I haven't seen Jackie, but I did love Spencer, and one quality that this has that Spencer had as well is he's able to create kind of these hypnotic just scenarios and this hypnotic sense about his movie that just kind of draws you into whatever is going on, even if there's really nothing making any sense. And this movie has a lot that doesn't make any sense. You hear the concept and you think this is going to be some sort of like slapstick, like artistic slapstick. And it's not what it is. It takes itself way too seriously for the subject matter. I mean, you're saying that this dictator was a vampire, and it doesn't, whatever. And then you have this whole family drama that breaks out. I don't really, yeah. It's kind of weird to try and understand what is going on. And then the last like 20 minutes, that's when I'm like, yeah, all right, you lost me. I don't know what you're trying to do now because this is just, you can't pull something like that out of your hat and say and then take a serious tone to it. It doesn't work. With that said, the cinematography is great. It felt like the tragedy of Macbeth. That's what it looked like. The Coen brothers, or not the Coen brothers, the Joel Coen outing with Denzel Washington and Frances McDormand. But yeah, ultimately it's too much of a what is going on to really be worth it. So yeah, 2.5 stars for me as well.
Well, this movie has gotten some good marks. It won the best screenplay in Venice, so that's interesting. Apparently people like this movie.
Like, Venice, I could see Venice falling in love with a movie like this.
So Zach Wilson just threw an interception, by the way. So life is really good. But I don't know how you stayed awake during this movie. I found it profoundly boring. I mean, I feel like you could put together 2 hours of newsreel archives from Chile in the 1980s, and that would be more interesting than this movie. Like and you're right with the so overly sober and serious tone, but it's contradicted by the whole silliness of the movie. It's like you get these scenes of this guy flying in the air against a green screen backdrop. I mean, it's shoddy. Like that stuff was ridiculous in the movie, and you can't take this premise at face value. I think the direction it needed to go was more just flat out satire. I mean, I think we needed, I don't even know a good satirist to do it today, but I think it really needed, like, I know it sounds crazy, but like an Andy Samberg component to it. Like, I think or Sacha Baron Cohen, I think it needed to be a lot wilder. It needed to be less of a capital M movie, capital C cinema. It needed to be something that was on the ground, gritty, and like, I don't know, rough. This movie is just way too, again, it's the Mank sort of aesthetic that is, everything is, so polished and glamorous in the black and white. It contradicts the whole message of the movie, I think, if there is one. And, again, the cameo at the end of the movie, what is the point? I think Lorraine wants us to like be really surprised and shocked, but like by that point, what does it matter? Pinochet is a vampire who's lived 200 years. Like, what? This is supposed to make the movie more compelling in some way? Like, it's ridiculous.
It's like either he had a point that none of us understand, or he thought he was making a comedy. Because you're right.
The movie is
there's
billed
only
as comedy, fantasy, history, horror on IMDb. So it's not a drama. It's just not a comedy style that we really get into, I think.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying it's like a Jarmusch movie. It's cold and it's like it's uninviting in how it does its comedy.
The characters speak in an ironic way, I think. That's also like a Jarmusch quality too. Yeah. Well, again, maybe we really needed Tilda Swinton in it.
I think, Zach, I think you were onto something when you said we were expecting like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter.
Yeah, that's why I was like,
not what we got.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, obviously the director of Jackie and Spencer is probably not going to give us that, but like, Spencer was really great at showing the like paranoia that she went through and like how alienated she felt kind of at the top. And I feel like in a weird way, this movie's trying to do that with Pinochet, but I'm not sure why. I think it's a movie that pretends to be like a leftist movie, but then it also kind of makes Pinochet likable. Like I think or it sympathizes with him in some way, but it doesn't treat him as the bloodthirsty dictator that I think Lorraine is aware of and actually should have probably portrayed. But whatever. I mean, fine. Show us a sequence of an old guy flying in the air and gruesomely decapitating heads, because that's really what we want to see. This movie was awful. I hope I'm like Bob when it comes to that movie that Todd watched and just doesn't remember it.
Yeah, I would say the premise is interesting, and if the premise sounds interesting at all, watch like the first 15 minutes, and you'll be fine. Like watch like the
first 15 minutes, and then go to the 90-minute mark with the revelation about the narrator, and then you got it. Or just look it up online. Honestly, it's not that great of a revelation.
There you go. So just watch the first 15 minutes and watch the last half hour, and you'll be good. You'll be good. But this is Thrice Declined. Zach is giving it 1 star. I have a feeling we'll hear from Zach on this one again in January when we go over our end of year lists. And
it's not even a fun movie to make fun of, though. I mean, Cocaine Bear is way more fun.
It's not. And then Todd and I are giving it 2.5 stars. So it's on Netflix. It was not. I watched it this morning. It was not in the top 10 most watched things on Netflix. Go figure that one. This is not a populist movie in any way, shape, or form. Maybe like a cinematography nomination. Maybe it is.
I mean, they love their black and white.
They love the black and white.
I love those redheads.
I mean, we couldn't tell if any of them were redheads because it was in black and white, but maybe some of them were. The nun might have been a redhead. We don't know. Okay. There was a lot of red that we just didn't see because there was a lot of blood, but I digress.